Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Welcome back to the Doctor Who Daily, and welcome to Friday's edition of the Doctor Who Daily. I have a question for you. Who owns Doctor Who? Us, the fans, or the BBC? Well, we both do. They own the rights to the IP, and they pay for it to be made, and they obviously are involved with Big Finish as well and all of that, so their trademarks all over it. But we also have some ownership because we buy the merch, we buy the memorabilia, we invest in Big Finish, we buy the box sets, we pay our license fee. But just because we have some kind of ownership for Doctor Who, with Doctor Who, it doesn't give us the right to dictate what they do with Doctor Who. Whatever creative owns Doctor Who, or should I say, whatever creative is running Doctor Who, has the right to execute their vision however they see fit. But every fan has the right to criticise that vision constructively. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about the Chris Chibnall era. Chris Chibnall cast the first female Doctor, and he failed on every level. He failed with her characterisation. He failed to make her interesting. He failed to write a great female Doctor. And he failed to give us an awesome epic Doctor, because the first female Doctor could have been the best Doctor ever. And that, honestly, would have been great representation and inclusion. But instead of doing that, he took the first female Doctor and did nothing with her. In terms of characterisation, he didn't give his characters anything. And he has failed on every level. Now, I don't really care about The Timeless Child and what he did with that. I think it's intriguing at some elements, as we've mentioned several times on this channel. But my issue is he just didn't do enough with what he was given, with what he had. He cast Jodie Whittaker. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have cast Jodie Whittaker as the first female Doctor. I think there was so many more better, people out there, female actors, actresses, who could have done a much better job. But how would they have been able to do a much better job when Chris Chibnall wouldn't have given them the tools? So they're lucky they never got the job. So he picked Jodie Whittaker, a person he worked with Broadchurch, a person he trusted. Now, Russell T Davies cast Christopher Eccleston, a man he'd worked with in the past. He cast David Tennant, a man he worked with on Casanova, a little series called Casanova, which actually aired and broadcast on BBC Three. So both showrunners actually went with people that they knew. Now, I don't think Matt Smith and Stephen Moffat had even worked together before. I think that Moffat and Capaldi probably did know each other, but I don't think they worked together before. So, very interesting. So there's nothing wrong. Loads of creatives in the industry cast people they've worked with before because they trust them and they can work with them, and that's fine. Jodie Whittaker is a fully trained actor, so she can act. But she's not a miracle worker. She can't take something and put magic on it and make it great. The only characterisation she has, and I've mentioned this many a times as well, is that she likes custard creams. It's ridiculous. And there's nothing else. She was asked, Chris was asked, what is she like? What is this Doctor like? Oh, she's like David Tennant's Doctor. And that's all we got. There was no discussion. Between the two of them, they should have sat down and said, you know what? My Doctor's going to have this quirk, that quirk. She's going to be like this. She's passionate about this. Every Doctor we've ever met has had their quirks and characterisations, right? And even back in the day when characterisations weren't that popular to do, the Doctor was a character, buzzing with personality. And that's always been the case. But this Doctor is the only Doctor not to have any characterisations of her own. And this is where the show failed, because no matter how many people didn't want a female Doctor, you give them a great female Doctor, believe you me, they'll shut up and watch watch it and enjoy it and buy the Blu-rays, you know, be very excited for it. But Chris Chibnall didn't do that. Now, I've discussed many a time about Chris. He's worked on other projects where he's given his characters great characterizations. I'm not sure what his motivation was for not giving Jodie and her companions, her fam, any personality. And I mean, Bradley Walsh comes along with personality to spare, but even his character lacked personality. And it's interesting with Graham because he's a survivor of cancer. I thought that was an opportunity to do something special. I actually thought they were going to kind of do him a bit like they did on Lost with John Locke, where he's had a second chance at life. He's, you know, he's a bit out there. He believes in faith over science. You know, I thought he would clash with the Doctor. And I thought that would have been that's the way I would have done it. Because Bradley Walsh, surprisingly so to some, is a really good actor. And I mean, in Law and Order UK, he was sensational. And he worked with Chris Chibnall on that as well. So there's another connection to another actor with Chris Chibnall. So, I mean, really, Bradley Walsh would have made a great Doctor. And I'm sure a few of you would agree with me about that. Quite a few people that Chibnall cast in his era of Doctor Who would have made a great Doctor. But it wasn't to be. So it isn't his choice of Doctor that's truly the problem. It's him that's the problem. He became very lazy. There was talk of a writer's room as well, you know, even, you know, him making any decisions about the show. And I still wonder, something else I've also repeatedly said in the past, was he the only person in the writer's room? He wrote a lot of episodes in season 11. I don't think he wrote as many on season 12, or did he? But in season 11, I mean, where's the writer's room? I mean, I'm thinking about the kind of writers that RTD brought onto Doctor Who from, you know, the first season of the revival, the second season, the third, the fourth. You know, some people who actually know something about Doctor Who. Now, Chibnall brought on Pete McTeague. He's a really good writer and he's done okay. But mainly, I haven't been impressed with his writers. Most of his writers come from soap. Now, I'm a big fan of soap. I really am. As a kid, I grew up on soap. I think soap writers are great. But I don't know what they know about Doctor Who, so it's odd. So his choice of writers when he's not writing the episode is odd. Although some may even dare to say the episodes that these writers read, you know, these episodes of the Chibnall era that are not written by Chibnall, actually quite often are better than the Chibnall episodes. And that should never be, that's not a good sign. Red flags there already. You know, the Moffat and the Davies penned episodes of their eras are the best in those eras because they're the showrunners with the visions. I mean, there's lots of criticism of Chibnall and the way he decided to go at it. I think he was lazy. I don't know what he was thinking, why he didn't develop his characters. It will always be of some mystery to me what he thought he was doing. 3 companions, 1 Doctor, very few characterizations. And you know, we talk about representation. We had what's his name? Ryan, always forget his name. Ryan, you know, played by an actor of colour, representation, inclusion, but did nothing with him. That's not great representation and inclusion. Like it wasn't great representation and inclusion the way he gave Jodie's Doctor no characterizations. So if you want the big talk and if you want to be inclusive, you've actually got to do the groundwork with your actors and your characters, because if you're not going to make the effort, what's the point? In fact, there's no point. There's no point in actually doing Doctor Who if you can't be bothered. Season 11 really didn't have an arc to it. It was literally standalone episodes. It seemed like he was trying to echo the very first series in 1963 with the first Doctor, William Hartnell. And that's why I think he had 3 companions, it simply didn't work. You know, when you think about kind of the original 1963 first series of Doctor Who, you had the 2 teachers, Ian Chesterton and Barbara, Ian and Barbara, and you had Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter. They meshed together really well, and they had an interesting dynamic. So Ian was the questioning, annoying person who kept on doubting the Doctor, but ultimately they kind of had a friendship in the end, and this mutual respect for each other. But in the very first episode, they don't really like each other, and the Doctor is very aggressive to Ian and Barbara. But there's not really any dynamic between the Doctor and her three companions in season 11. There's nothing. They're just there. They're just there for the ride. I don't even know what they're doing there and why they haven't asked to go home. I like The Woman Who Fell to Earth, especially the way it ends when they're all floating in space. Awesome. Everyone's going, is this what it's going to happen now? It's going to end in cliffhangers every week. Wouldn't that be awesome? Wasn't the case. So the first episode was really good. The Ghost Monument was okay. And obviously Rosa was a really good episode. But then from the fourth episode of season 11, it took a downturn. And it became, as I say, very, very lazy. And he's not usually a lazy creative. So none of us will really know what went wrong with the Chibnall era of Doctor Who. And now Russell has to come in and fix his mess. And that is what's happening. As I say, I don't like to devalue what people love. And if you love the Chibnall era, that's absolutely fine. And you don't need my permission to love it. I'm just giving you my truth and my opinions on him. What he did in season 11 set the tone for what people were going to think of him, and that was the problem. And once people have an opinion on someone, on Doctor Who, or running something iconic, it's very difficult to change their minds back. Now, we will see what he's got in store for us in his final run of Doctor Who, but I just don't understand what he was thinking from the very beginning. This has been the Doctor Who Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. I'll be back tomorrow with even more Doctor Who Daily. Until then, goodbye.